So now time for the final section of this series. When you are playing a Voltron type deck, especially in a multiplayer format specifically, so I'm not going to get into like 1v1 scenarios for this case, you have 4 players you have to take down, right? So you're not dealing 21 damage to one player, you're dealing it probably to 2 or 3 players, usually depending on the size of your pod. So there's a lot of like politicking involved, and at the same time you want people to sort of respect the position that you are at and hold. And there is more politicking than one would sort of think, because you are the pod's answer to things like life gain decks. Also, usually you would have the largest creature or creature quality on the battlefield, so you have a pretty commanding position. One thing I would take note though is that don't spread yourself too thin. While it's challenging and interesting to play just one single creature and play no other creature in your deck except for a commander, one issue you could potentially run into is the fact that people just go wide, right? Maybe you're playing against someone who has elves or like a token deck whereby they just mass swarm you with a lot of 1/1s, and you could still potentially lose to something like that. And at the same time, while being a linear deck, you should also have a lot of flexible removal. Once again, a lot of flexibility when it comes to dealing with many different types of permanents, many different types of situations. I'll say like one of the greatest enemies or cards that you have to take note of that you could potentially run into, which is rather annoying, are specifically, well, at least in my meta, there'll be land cards. Things like Maze of Myth, Core Haven, Magister, a Tower of the Magistrate. So each of this does something that's harmful for our commander. So the first 2, they just remove from combat or they deal no damage. And then for the second, or rather the third one, it would remove all artifacts, all equipments from our commander if we're playing an equipment type style Voltron. And that's why any commander with a natural hexproof ability stapled onto it is automatically the first pick. If you're new to Voltron, that is the one that I would recommend you getting into first, just because it makes a lot of your opponent's removal or answers dead cards. With that being said though, there's also Glacial Chasm. So if you're in a pod that plays Glacial Chasm, it is something that you should be wary about. So basically that is a card that has a cumulative upkeep. I think they lose like 2 life or 1 life per each age counter, and you get age counter on your upkeep. But the annoying thing is that all damage dealt to them is 0. So that one single land can destroy your entire strategy, which is why running land removal is completely necessary in my opinion. Of course, that being said, I don't mean you don't necessarily have to run things like Stone Rain or Rain of Tears, but rather types of removal that could potentially also remove lands. So that would definitely be something you should consider slotting in. And you can also build your deck in such a way that you can survive board wipes that are usually symmetrical, but are in other cases asymmetrical, because of the way you are able to sort of recover from your own board wipes. So a good example would be like Cataclysm, Razia's Purification, and Tragic Arrogance. So these 3 cards specifically do something rather unique, whereby each player can only keep 1 of each permanent type. And the reason why this is a good card, these are good cards for the Voltron deck, is because you basically just need your commander. You need 1 or 2 equipment or auras on it. You can keep 1 or 2 lands as long as you have a way to ramp back up. Also, at the same time, as long as you're playing a low curve, when I mean that, I mean like let's say under 5 CMC, you're not going to be stuck with a hand whereby you have to a land of like 6 drops, 7 drops, 8 drops that you would not otherwise be able to cast. Usually you're above 6 CMC slot cards, you should see it kind of like recasting your commander, because your commander is definitely going to die multiple times during the game, and you want to be able to recast it because that's your main way that you're capable of winning. So thank you for listening into this podcast, this series, and let me know if there's any questions or opinions or thoughts, anything I might have missed out on, whatever I might have missed out on or you want to bring to my attention. Feel free to leave a comment. Thanks.